Welcome back to the Business of Becoming. I am your host, Stephanie. And if this is your first time here, I help high achieving people who feel alone at the top find their peace, their purpose, and the next version of themselves. And if you've been here before, I hope you like my fit because I am giving very sexy librarian, I feel, or very school teacher that I have a crush on.
You look like somebody's auntie.
Or I look like somebody's mom, apparently. I'm just trying to give myself some grace and make myself feel good, but apparently I just look like somebody's aunt or somebody's parent. Today's episode is, I think it's a big one emotionally. It's a big one, not necessarily where it's super long, but I want to get into it because I don't want to give you this long intro of why and how and all this other fun stuff. I really want to get into it because I feel like once we do, you're going to lock in. So if you're like me and you have found yourself parked outside of your driveway with your keys in your hand, or you haven't even turned off the car and you're just waiting because mentally you're still in work mode, mentally you're still, thinking about your email, thinking about your day, and your mind is there, but your heart is like, you need to go inside, you need to be a parent. Well, this episode is for you because we've been there, as parents and working parents and single parents in general, when we're chasing, the dream of running our own business or, having that financial freedom or running and chasing toddlers or even disciplining teenagers. We find ourselves kind of stuck in this cycle, and it's hard to remember your visions. It's hard to remember your goals. It's hard to remember, what that work-life balance really, that freedom of that work-life balance really looks like. And today I want to explain and really dive deep into some, if not my favorite, personal development strategy. And I've seen it, I've done it, I've used it time and time again. And I just used it again recently, where it's the power of the 3 C's. And what is that? That is choice, chance, and change. If you use this is the most practical thing. I'm not here to give you guys just motivational advice. I am here to give you practical tools that you, the people that you lead, can actually use and completely get you out of a cycle, out of a rut, out of this 9 to 5, or out of this just, I don't know what the hell I'm looking forward to type of thing. This is the self-improvement that actually fits a working parent's lifestyle. Let's get into it. So the first thing we're going to talk about the first C, which is the choice. Because whether you want to believe it or not, everything starts with a choice. Every decision, every choice that you make, whether you realize it or not, even if it's staying in the same, cycle or position or job, it is a choice that you are making. And that choice will then lead the rest of your life, your month, your day, your years. That choice that you are making can look like the responsible choice, can look like you staying at a job that drains you, doing something that you have zero passion for, but it may feel like the most responsible thing to do. And it's still a choice. It's very simple. You have to remember who you are, who you want to be. Because staying in a job or doing something that is not fulfilling you, it's not giving you the sense of purpose that you want, it's draining you and it's exhausting you. And it's, again, just waiting for a Friday, waiting for a weekend, and just going through the day like a zombie. And that's not what life's about. I scroll through IG and I scroll through social media like the most of us. And as I was doing one of these brain dump moments, I guess, or not brain dump, what is that? Brain rot. Yeah, there you go. As I was doing this brain rot moment, I came across this reel that was talking about the top 5 things that people say on their deathbed. And please fact check me, but from what I saw, was the top thing that people regretted the most was not living a full life for themselves, but living a life that was lived for others. Not being able to fully be what they wanted, who they wanted, take the risk because it was always kind of lived for the expectation of somebody else. And I would have thought, like a normal average human being, I would have thought that, the top thing would have been, I didn't spend enough time with my family, or I didn't say I love you enough, or maybe that's just a romantic in me, right? Or I didn't travel more, or something like that. But if I'm not mistaken, the correct words that were used was I didn't have the courage to live a life that I wanted to. And that just stuck with me. Like it's stuck with me for the last few weeks, because the last thing that I ever want to say on my deathbed is that I didn't have courage to live a life fully the way I wanted to. And believe me, guys, I run a business. I have 2 toddlers. I have, a bunch of people that rely on me and that have expectations for me, and that have, I have a parents, so they need a daughter. I have sisters, they need a sister. I have kids, they need a mom. I have a team, I have employees, they need a leader. I get it. I get how consuming that can be, because I don't want you to think right now, wherever you're listening to me from, that, oh, Steph, you just don't understand my situation. I can't just take, I can't just make this choice to do something that I love, or take this choice to start this new risk or adventure, or even relationships. Like, I really want you to understand that I completely get you. I've been there. I've been there multiple times in my life. And most recently, I was there when I had to make the decision to sell my house. Like, I explained to you guys in the last episode before how emotionally draining that was for me. But it was a choice that I knew I had to make, and it sucked. It was an uncomfortable one, because I would have fought tooth and nail for it. But I had to make a decision to really just say, man, I'm done with this chapter. I need to start a new one. I need to close this up, because I'm walking through a house with ghosts. As much as I loved it, but I can't do this anymore. I, Stephanie, want to be able to be on my deathbed one day, very late, far in the future. I want to see my great grandkids, because I ain't working this hard to die now. Because if not, God and I are going to have a very serious conversation. But later, on my deathbed, I don't want to say that I didn't have the courage. I don't. I want to be able to say, I lived the life that I needed to live, that I wanted to live, and people were blessed because of that, because I was my true, authentic self. For me first, my kids, hopefully I do have a partner, hopefully I do get married again, for them, and for everyone that has and will be next to me. I've been there. I've been there. I've been there where my calendar is full and, things are moving, but emotionally and in my heart, I was exhausted. I didn't want to have all of that. I wasn't happy. Actually, very up. Well, I would say actually right before I even started this podcast, I was there. I was, standing in this office, and I remember just feeling like I know I'm moving in the right direction in sense of like work, and I'm just putting my foot forward, but I was exhausted and I wasn't enjoying it again. And sometimes when you have to make these decisions, to choose, okay, what do I want myself to look like in a year? What do I want in a year from now to feel like? Again, I felt, just standing here, I just felt like I wasn't even making decisions anymore. Decisions were just being made for me, and I was reacting to them. And I was just being like, okay, I have to do this, the next thing, blah, 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 the next thing. I was calling it the hustle. I was calling it responsibility. But it really wasn't the life that I wanted. And if you're there, and if you say, Steph, I really can't get out of what I'm doing right now. So I want to give you a little practical homework. And this is what I've done. This is what I do. And this is really a big part of this episode is this choice, right? I want you to think about your 5-year plan. I know it's cheesy, but please just think of it. I don't need you to write this down, but I do want you to think of it. And now I want you to ask yourself this question. If in 5 years, nothing changes, you have the same routine, the same schedule, the same everything, would you be at peace? If the answer is yes, great. I love that for you. But if the answer is no, if the answer is I can't see myself doing this for the next 5 years, I can't see myself in this job, or I can't see myself not taking a chance on myself. I can't see myself getting out of financial freedom in this position that I'm in. If the answer is no, or you're just like, hey, I'm not happy. And if in 5 years I am still not happy, then you don't have to make a decision right now. But the cool thing about this exercise is that it forces you to realize that you have to make a decision at some point. You're acknowledging that things right now, if they stay exactly the same, in the next 5 years, I'm going to hate life. I'm not going to be happy. So you don't have to do anything today, but you definitely are already acknowledging in yourself and in your spirit and in your soul and in everything that you believe in, call it the universe, call it God, whatever, you're acknowledging something has to change. I eventually have to make a decision because I can't see myself in 5 years in the same place. And this is where personal development starts, ladies and gentlemen. It is not you making this grand gesture, or hitting the lotto. It's not. Personal development starts with you acknowledging this isn't enough for me right now. This isn't fulfilling me right now. And that's great. That is the first step of realizing that, one, you're in your comfort zone and you need to make eventually a decision to get out of it. But really just kind of saying, okay, like, I know right now this is what I'm going to do, but I need to figure out how I'm not going to stay the same in the next 5 years. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, I promise you, I was in this office and I was spiraling out because I knew I was so busy. I was so consumed with everything. I was traveling like crazy for work. And again, I was reacting to what was in front of me. And thankfully, my producer, shout out to Frankie, came into my office and said, hey, you've talked about you're starting this podcast. You've talked about this for a while, but let's sit down and really look at what you can do. And that was the first time in a really long time that I got excited to work again. Because this podcast is work, people. And it forced me to think about my 5-year plan. Like, damn, I can't do this for the next 5 years. I'm going to go crazy. And I need to pursue something that I love. I need to pursue a passion. And whether it works out or it doesn't, I need to take a chance. I need to take that risk for myself to feel like myself again. All the while I'm still working, all the while I'm still being a parent, all the while I'm still doing what I need to do. But I had to sit myself down and be like, oh yeah, this isn't going to work for the next 5 years. I'm going to be drained. Because leaving the comfort zone, one, it's scary, but it genuinely doesn't require such a large leap. It just requires you to remember or to now finally face the reality that that zone isn't comfortable anymore. And that in itself is life altering, which leads me to my next C, which is chance. Now that you know you don't want to be in your comfort zone anymore, and basically you don't want this for yourself. Taking the chance is probably the scariest thing for most people that I talk to, and for most people that, are taking risk or are doing something different or want to do something different for themselves. This part is the most difficult part, is that chance. And believe you me, I've said this already, as a working parent, there are much more risk involved. Because if you're listening to me and you are single, or you're just dating and you're building your life, or you don't have kids yet, this chance is very different. This chance is you betting on yourself and just kind of hoping that it plays out. As a parent, you have a lot more risk that you need to be aware of. And I want to remind you that when I took a chance, right, I'm going to go bring it back to business. When I took a chance to expand into different markets for what I do, and if you don't know what I do, I own a public adjusting and appraisal firm, and I basically help people who have damages to their homes, and I help them get compensated by the insurance company, right? So when I decided to expand and go to different states and bring my market out there, because it's scary to do what you've done in your hometown or in your state for over a decade, and then now go to different states, that was scary. That was a huge risk. That was a big chance that I was betting on myself. And I knew that it was going to require a lot more time for me to invest into these areas. And I was a parent already. So I get taking risks and chances. You need to acknowledge that you have home responsibilities. So when I did this, I took a small step, which was I chose one city, one state and one city, and I invested into learning about the market. I invested into, meeting people there, and I didn't just jump all in and, build a brick and mortar somewhere and say, all right, guys, we're going to go all in. I would have done it, and I had done it before when I didn't have children. I opened up in Texas, I opened up in Georgia. But when I had children and I was opening up in Colorado, that was scarier for me, because now I was like, oh my gosh, that's a 4.5 hour flight from where I'm at. And this back and forth, I have to think of my children, right? Thankfully, it panned out for the better. And there were some markets that didn't pan out for me, guys. I want to be honest, but I started small. I started investing into that market, learning about it, meeting people who were there, doing the legwork, and not letting fear, and not even just fear of failing or risking money, but fear of failing as a parent, really get to me. You have to learn how to take the smallest first step, what that looks like for you. You have to learn how to leap, but still have like a safety net under you especially when you're dealing with being a working parent. You can't just automatically, balls to the wall, just not care. Some people do, and great, love that for you. But I am also a very calculated person. And that first step was, investing and learning about this new area and if it's even beneficial, and profitable for me. And that's the growth mindset. That is you learning and trying to kind of take it up a notch, right? But it's also you being smart with taking a chance and risking it. But before you give yourself a bigger risk and before you take a bigger step, you start small. You earn trust with yourself first. And here's another thing that I've learned about chances and about taking a chance on yourself is that a lot of the chances, a lot of the risks that I took were more emotional than they were practical. Like leaving a marriage, learning how to parent completely differently than I thought I would be or that I envisioned myself doing. Even loving myself for who I am now, that was a huge emotional, like, roller coaster for me. For some people, we talk about courage, and courage to start over It might look boring to talk about courage, but let me tell you, courage looks boring. Because sometimes courage is you getting your behind off of the bed because you're heartbroken or you're just not feeling like you're good enough, and saying, I'm going to get my behind to the gym, or I'm going to brush my teeth and just take a shower. I'm going to do my hair, or if you're a guy, I'm going to shave, I'm going to get up. And that's courage, because you can easily after a heartbreak or after just making these, decisions that sometimes life just kind of forces you to do or forces you to be in, and just numb it out, Or you could be courageous and say, I'm going to get up and do something and show myself that I can love myself. That is courageous, ladies and gentlemen. That is very courageous. And it may look boring. It definitely could look boring. It could look like you going to the gym. It could look like you taking yourself out to eat for dinner by yourself. It could look like a lot of these different things. But those were probably the most difficult chances that I had to make, was those emotional ones, was putting myself first emotionally rather than doing what I've done my whole life, which was caring way more for those around me than I even did for myself. Nobody claps for the moments where you're, this is going to sound so gushy, but like where you're crying yourself to sleep, or when you're, moving through life knowing that your heart is heavy because you have so many new things going on and so many new decisions and so many new rhythms and new, versions of what life looks like right now for you. Like maybe even a new space. Like, I don't know. Again, you guys know that I'm moving. So that in itself, emotionally, that was hard. Getting in touch with my emotions was hard. And that's a huge chance that I had to take on myself. And I really hope that you guys do too. And I want you to listen. Taking a chance, taking a risk does not have to look reckless. You just have to make sure that fear is not prohibiting you from believing in yourself or believing that you can do something to change what that 5-year plan would look like for you. You can't let fear become your decision maker. You can't live emotionally. You can't live with an emotion running your life. And I'm going to leave you with the tool for the second C, which is chance. And that tool is take the smallest scary step for yourself. Whether it's this week, whether it's this month, you're listening to me, so you want your life to change, right? So take the smallest step. Maybe it's you didn't send out that job application that you're like, I don't know. Or maybe you haven't raised your prices if you're a business owner because you're scared. What if I lose clients? What if I lose, returning customers? But you know that you cannot live within the profit margin that you have right now. You need to take the smallest but truest version of that step, okay? Maybe it's even having a hard conversation or deciding to have that hard conversation. You need a step. You don't need the whole staircase, ladies and gentlemen. You need the first step, okay? And I want this week, if you can, what does that look like for you? And are you going to take a chance to actually do it? And we land here with the last C, which is change. I want to be very clear. Change does not happen to you. Change happens through you. And the way that it actually happens through you is by the first two C's, which is, making a choice and taking chances. That's how change actually happens in your life. Change is not the starting point. Change is the result of choices and chances that you make and that you take. Because we all want to look fit. We all want the body, of a fitness titan. But do we want to go and work out? Do we want to eat healthy? We all want the benefits of, being a business owner and having your own free time and free schedule, but are you going to do the first two C's first? Are you going to make the choice, the hard choice, really, to bet on yourself? You're going to take the hard choice to realize that what you have right now, you need to change your rhythm in order to get it. Again, change, and I want to say it clearly because I really hope it lands. Change is not the starting point. Change is the result of the choices and the chances that you take. The next chapter for you doesn't just happen. It doesn't just write itself, or no, the next chapter for you happens when you really act on making these decisions, and some of them are super hard to close some doors. You don't, as a parent, I think change is probably one of the hardest things that we can do. And because we don't want to mess up our kids, and honestly, my therapist gave me the best advice, which was you can't prevent, messing up your kids a little bit, because that's life, and we're all parenting for the first time. But as long as you mess them up less than what you were messed up, you're doing a good job. And that may sound terrible for some people, but that just took such a burden off of my shoulder to be this perfect parent and be afraid to make changes for them and be afraid to make the hard decision and take a chance and result in change for them. I knew that it was going to make them better because I was going to be better. And it was going to be the best thing for myself and for them. The most powerful personal development that you will ever do will never require a microphone or a stage. It starts with you having that very difficult conversation with yourself. And then on, if you have kids or if you're leading a team or whatnot, they look at everything that you do. And the biggest thing that they're going to do is look at how you tackle fear. They're going to look at how you operate under pressure. And once your, leadership or the people under you really start getting closer to you, they're going to realize, what your habits are. And your children then on will realize, okay, this is how they operate when stuff like this happens. And we're in the business of becoming better humans. Why? Because we want to leave a better legacy than what was left to us. We want to leave a footprint in this world, right? Because it's much bigger than us, everything that we do. So we want this personal development. We want this personal growth because it's going to make us people worth following. It's going to make us people, worth respecting. And that's what I want. I want to be not liked or loved by everyone, but I want to be respected. And I want to at least know that I had taken every chance that I can to be the best version of myself in this moment for not only my children, but everyone that I lead and everyone around me. So I'm going to give you guys a very raw and unfiltered personal story that I don't want to cry in when I say it. And Heidi's not here, nor Bear, so I feel like if I do need to cry, I can. But I do want to share it because so many of us have probably found ourselves there and never really had the words to express what we're feeling. And I want to say maybe a week or two ago, I was there building furniture in my home. Well, in my new place. Yeah. So I was there building furniture and I just got flooded with all of these emotions, right? And I didn't know where they were coming from. I have made some serious choices and have made some serious, risk. And they were, starting to appear as changes in my life, right? And going into a new place, the whole nine. And as I'm building furniture and reading the instructions and the whole nine, I started bawling. I started crying and just being flooded with emotions at like 2:33 in the morning. And for that first time in a really, really long time, I just like looked up and I was like, why do I feel so defeated? Like I'm not this person. I'm doing things that scare me, yes, and I'm bold, I'm courageous, whatever, but why do I feel still super defeated? And I genuinely felt like I felt myself talk to myself, right? And I call that God talking to me. And I just said out loud, I was like, I don't feel whole. And I just, that opened up another can of just crying. And why do I say all of this? Because as I'm there and as I'm just praying, and I was just like, I don't feel whole right now, even though this is the best decision for me, even though this is a change, but it's a good change. I still don't feel whole. And I just broke down and said probably one of the most honest and wholehearted prayer, which was, I don't feel whole because I feel like my children, don't have, they don't see mommy with a man, right? They don't see mommy with, a stepdad or a bonus dad or a male figure that's there all the time with them. And like, they don't have the idea of what a family looks like. And I've been chasing that for such a long time that I think it caught up to me. And I just felt like I was not whole. And I had to just say it out loud and break down and just tell God, God, if right now that's not for me, then you need to change what wholeness looks like for me. You need to change it because I don't feel whole without it. And it's something I've been burying, like something I have been burying down for such a long time that was finally surfacing up. And I want to tell you guys that because it was such a like human, like raw moment in my life. Because it just blew my mind to really feel like I have to learn how to trust God with not the life I had, but the life He's building for me. And I've had to learn, and I'm learning that maybe wholeness doesn't look like having all these pieces together that I thought I needed, like a, picture perfect, like a picture perfect family with a white picket fence and a mommy and a daddy, and 2 kids and a dog. Like maybe that's not wholeness for me right now. Maybe wholeness is me trusting God with what isn't there yet, and reframing my mind to just believe that wholeness is trusting God with what isn't there yet. And I can feel whole with knowing that it's not there yet. And that, ladies and gentlemen, that is so hard. It's so difficult. But my God, it was so liberating to say out loud. It was so liberating to feel it and say, okay, I said it. I've heard people say, I wish I didn't care so much. I wish I don't love that hard. And I honestly think that that is the worst thing to want for yourself, because loving and caring so much and freaking putting your heart on your sleeve, it is the most noble thing in this world. It is the most riveting thing that makes us fiercely human. It is the one thing that creates passion and pursuit and builds businesses, and not just like businesses that are just for money, but legacies. It's love, it's passion, it's caring so much for things that are gonna break your heart. It's why we fight for things that are bigger than us. It's why we do things for our family. It's why we take these big chances and big risk. Heartbreak, bro, like heartbreak, who cares? It just shows that you love deeply. And if you get betrayed by people in work or whatnot, that shouldn't be defeating for you to say, I'm never doing this again, I'm never trusting this again. No, it should just show that you care that much about what you do, and you should never want to take that emotion away from yourself. Because, by God, if not, you are robotic and you are not someone who is connected with themselves, who then can connect with people, who then can actually make a difference in this world. Because our hearts and our spirits can be fragile sometimes, but they are resilient. They are resilient because what you have gone through, I think, would have broken many people. So what I have gone through probably left a lot of people on their ass. But it just goes to show that you're resilient, that you've got this. So the tool that I give you for change is this one. I do want you to write down. This I want you to do because I did it for the first time a couple days ago. And I mean, there was tears and mocos and everything through it. But it was so amazing to do. And I'm so excited to tell you guys. I want you to write a letter to yourself from your future self. So a year from now, Stephanie is writing to her right now. She's on the other side of, choices and chances. And I want you to write to yourself. And in that writing, I want you to say what you're proud of yourself for not giving up on, what you feel about yourself, how peaceful your life looks like. And I just genuinely am curious to see what your letter is going to tell you about yourself in a year. And let it kind of write itself. But the main thing is I really want you to tell yourself, it's a short letter, just what are you so proud of for not giving up on, okay? And like I said, you're going to read it in a year because change is slow. Change is not something that happens overnight. Change is very slow. It's through the process of choices and chances. Change is slow. And you're going to need a reminder every now and then. So looking at it just reminds you, okay, I got to get through this, because one thing I want to make very, very clear is that getting over it does not exist, but getting through it does. And this is not from ChatGPT. This is me, myself, Stephanie, telling you what has just been tattooed on my soul. Because I've gone my whole life with people saying, you need to get over it. You need to get over it. I'm in an industry basically dominated by men, So getting over it is something that I've heard multiple times. And I had to rewire my brain to realize that getting over it really doesn't exist, because it's going to resurface. Just like me building furniture at 3 a.m. and bawling my eyes out because I'm like, I didn't know I had this feeling in me, right? It doesn't exist, but getting through it does. And I want you to write that letter to yourself about getting through it. So let's bring it home, all right? You make the choice, you take the chance. That's what's going to bring change. That's the whole core of this entire podcast. Maybe your choice this week, it's not, doing something drastic like quitting your job or, ending something, or I don't know. It doesn't have to be crazy. Maybe the choice really is just not giving up on yourself this week. Because I need you to know that you hating yourself isn't going to bring peace, that you bullying yourself isn't going to bring peace, that you projecting everything else on everybody else is just going to result in chaos for you. And you cannot also shame yourself to become better. That's not noble. You saying, well, I'm just not good enough, and I'm not what this person needs, or I'm not what this job requires. That's shaming yourself. And that is not going to do good for anyone. And that is not going to make you better, and it's not going to break you out of a cycle. It's going to keep you stuck. The next version of you is not waiting for perfection. It's waiting for permission. It's waiting for you to say, finally, be you. So take the small, scary step, write that letter to yourself, and be bold, be courageous. Believe in yourself before anybody else does. And trust it, because no matter what, God is seeing every quiet decision that you make to become the version that He created for you. So, not to sound religious, but it's what's grounded me. Every quiet decision that you're making, just leave it on your Creator's shoulder and saying, hey, I'm making this decision, And I'm just hoping that you pan it out so that I am who I'm supposed to be, because I want to live a life full of purpose. And in purpose, I know I'll find my joy. Because wandering around purposeless is going to lead you into crappy relationships, into being a crappy leader, into going with the flow, into not making real changes for yourself, and not being somebody worth looking up to and worth, like, just inspiring. I don't want to look at someone and be led by someone who can just go with the flow. No, I want somebody who has made hard decisions, who's believed in themselves, who has said, I got this, even when I feel like I don't. You're not behind. You're not alone at the top. Here in the business of becoming, we're doing it all together. And I'm doing it in real time, people. I am. I'm doing it in real time. So thank you so much for listening. If this episode landed with you, or if you know somebody that really needs to make some hard choices, take some real chances to create some real change in their life, hit the share button, send it to them, and don't forget to like and subscribe, because we are building a community of people who are going to become the best versions of themselves. And we're almost at 2,000 subscribers, which I think is great. We're in episode, 51, 52? 51. Almost a year in. Guys, our anniversary is coming. And so is my birthday. But anyways, thank you guys so much for listening. Can't wait to see you guys in the chair next week.